I'm just going to give you a snapshot of my life and what it's looked like for the last 13 years. This girl I was 35 years old 13 years ago, and if you had told me back then that I would sell my company for $255 million, I would have laughed in your face. We never expected Drybar to turn into the global phenomenon that it did. But before I get into that, I'm going to take you down a walk down memory lane. So this was me in high school, and I was really lost after high school. And when all my friends were deciding to go to college, I didn't know what to do. I didn't want to go to college. No offense. It wasn't. Sorry. I know where I am, but college just wasn't for me, and mostly because I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. My whole life I had loved doing hair. I grew up in South Florida, so my naturally curly hair was big and frizzy, and I never felt very confident in myself because of my hair. And I wouldn't pay attention to this for many years to come, but as my friends were all going to college and I was lost, I decided to move to New York City. I moved to New York City and started my career kind of jumping around and trying thing after thing. And I didn't decide to actually take the plunge and go to beauty school until all the other things I was doing just weren't working out. I consider myself a seeker. I'm always seeking the thing that lights me up, the thing that makes me really excited. And I was doing that when I was in my early 20s, which I urge all of you to do as well. And that's really how I ended up in cosmetology school. My parents weren't super excited about that, but I also grew up in a generation where, my parents were like, we hope she marries well, which I didn't, by the way. But that's another TED Talk. But I was like the lost girl trying to figure out what to do with her life. And this is a shot of my mom, who was not a hairstylist, blow drying my hair. So it's always been a thing for me. So anyways, fast forward, I'm living in New York City. I meet my first ex-husband there. That's not meant to be the theme of my talk. But I wanted to have babies. We moved to LA, and I had two sons who are now 16 and 18, and one is actually in college. So I'm very proud. But after being a stay-at-home mom for 5 years, I just got the itch to do something for myself. But what was I going to do? I didn't have a college degree, and I had worked in hair salons for years. So I decided to start a mobile blowout business, because that way I could blow out, all my mommy friends' hair and then still pick up my kids from preschool. And it felt like a really great thing to do at the time. And what was shocking about that is it would ultimately lead to Drybar. But it was more of like, again, the seeking and trying to figure out what made me happy. And as much as I love my children, to get away from my children for a couple hours every day and talk to adults was really awesome. So I start this mobile business. It's going so well, and I'm so busy. And that's, when I realized that maybe I was onto something, I was only charging $40 to go to women's homes. So I live in LA. In LA, that's very unheard of. In most parts of the country, to get someone to go to your house to do a blowout for $40 is unheard of. But that was when I realized that maybe instead of me going to them, they should come to me. And so I went to my brother and said, I want to turn my my mobile business into a brick and mortar. And he kind of looked at me like I was crazy. He also has no hair, and so has no business in this. It's my favorite joke. But I went to my brother and said, hey, I'm having a lot of success in my mobile business. I think we should turn it into a brick and mortar. And he, reluctantly said yes. He also was quite willing to put up all of the money and give me 50% sweat equity, which I didn't know even what that term meant back then. I didn't go to college, and I don't have a business degree. But lo and behold, he supported me, and this is my ex-husband, also bald, and had no... It's just not lost on me that these guys were my partners in this blowout empire. So, none of us saw the success of Drybar coming, truly. We opened the first location in Brentwood 13 years ago this month. And, I thought it'd be my business. I'd pick up my kids from school, and that would be my life and my livelihood. And it could not have gone more differently. I mean, we were so busy so fast out of the gate that we knew we had captured lightning in a bottle. And really, the magic of Drybar is what I very quickly realized is, like, we're not just selling blowouts, we're selling the happiness and confidence that we give to women. And that was really the secret sauce. Plus, you know, we have my brother, who's a world-class business brain, my ex-husband, who's is an advertising guy, who's a creative director. So he was really, Cam was in charge of branding, my brother was business, and I was the hair. So we were just this perfect storm, you know, which I don't believe in accidents, and I think we were all meant to come together at this point in our lives to start this business and run this business. And, you know, we didn't pay ourselves for so many years, and we were in the trenches, but we realized that, you know, we were really onto something. And so we started opening more and more stores. Today, there's 150 Drybars across the country. I've now sold the business 3 years ago, right before the world fell apart in 2020. And my life has changed quite a bit. These are just some shots from, you know, the amazing staff. I mean, we employ over 5,000 people at any given time with 150 shops. So it was quite the endeavor, and I feel like I got a business degree on the job learning how to run this company. But now what? So what's next for me? Before I get into that, I should tell you guys that we started a product line about 3 years into starting the company, which we launched exclusively with Sephora, and that is really what we ended up selling for $255 million. This is a very ominous shot of me at Shark Tank when I was a guest judge. I just threw in there. But the product line was, you know, was so successful because if you didn't have a Drybar near you, and most women didn't, they could buy our products and use them and get the Drybar experience. And that's really what we were selling. So we sold that, and then now what? You know, this was 3 years ago, and my life significantly changed, and I started to realize that I needed to kind of build out the next chapter of my life. So I wrote a book, as people often do, called The Messy Truth, which is, you know, my very messy truth. I mentioned some divorces, there was rehab, depression, you name it, and this book is the encapsulation of my whole life, my journey, you know, all the mistakes, all the things I did wrong, and there were so many of them as we were building this company, and not to mention, you know, the mistakes I made with my kids, and obviously my husband's, and all of that. So the book really encapsulates all of that, and it's been such a labor of love for me to not only tell my story on a bigger scale, but also to help inspire other entrepreneurs that, you know, I'm just a mom. I was just a mom who had a great idea and built it. And it brings me to my next point, which is imposter syndrome. You know, it's a term that gets thrown around quite a bit as a negative, and, you know, I'm here to tell you it's not. So if you feel like an imposter, you're doing something right. I was certainly an imposter. I didn't know how to run a business. I didn't know how to write a book. I didn't know how to be a guest shark on Shark Tank. I didn't know how to do any of it, but I stepped into those roles because they were new and exciting, and I'm always seeking new and exciting. And, you know, not letting fear stop me. There's a great quote by a guy named Zig Ziglar that's an acronym for fear. See if I don't mess this up. The first part is, oh my gosh, forget everything and run, or face everything and rise. The choice is yours. Thank you.